Hello friends, welcome back to the homestead, and today's video is all about my favorite tips to keep your flock healthy. In today's stressful economy, there has been a huge explosion in the interest of backyard chickens. With that brings a lot of questions for newcomers who have never raised chickens before in the past. And I'm hoping to address some things today to ease your mind, to help you step into that venture and know that you're going to give your flock the best start, the best advantage to stay healthy and avoid problems in the long run and have healthier chickens. It goes without saying, probably the first thing that we should be attentive to is cleanliness. Now, cleanliness and chickens don't necessarily go together because chickens poop everywhere and chickens poop all the time. They have no manners when it comes to that, and they are not potty trained. So when you're talking about cleanliness, we're going to talk about the most important things to try to keep clean when it comes to your chickens. Number one is going to be their water source. You want to make sure that their water is clean, and you want to make sure that it's freshened on a regular basis. And while we're on the subject of water, I would also suggest that you add a little bit of apple cider vinegar. Raw apple cider vinegar is the best. That's the one that I would really stress. That if you can add a couple tablespoons per gallon of water, that's going to be a great step in helping to keep your flock healthy. So keep that in mind. So if your coop is a raised coop, your hen house with a wood floor, I suggest an ample layer of pine shavings. And as those become soiled and damp, you want to change those out because you don't want the soiled bedding to start rotting your floor, or you don't want the moisture to stay in there because moisture is going to breed germs and disease and also set you up for a problem with mites and lice. So you want to be sure to keep that periodically changed. And when you do change it, I also suggest that you put a sprinkling of diatomaceous earth down before you put your new bedding down. And if your coop is like mine and it has a dirt floor, what I practice is the deep bed method. And what that is you just continue to layer as the soiled bedding gets trampled down and it breaks down and it begins to be a little too damp in there or whatever. I put a nice thick layer of fresh, dry, old hay or straw, something to that effect. I don't do shavings in the deep bed method. And what that's doing is that is building that up, and it's composting, which can give me a source of compost later down the line, as long as I know the source of my hay and it wasn't sprayed, because you don't want a sprayed hay in there to use on your garden. And that's the topic of another video, but we'll get into that. But I just practice the deep bed method, and as it builds up and breaks back down, I put another layer, a thick layer of clean straw or hay. Now, the nesting boxes are another place that you want to keep clean. They're very easy to keep clean usually, unless you have a chicken that's trying to roost in the nesting boxes at night and they leave their mess behind. Then you're going to have more of a problem. And what you can do in that case, I'll give you a quick tip on that, is go out in the evenings when they start roosting, take that hen and set her on the roost with the others. Now, you may have to do that for as much as a week or week and a half or whatever, but eventually she will begin to understand that she's supposed to roost on the roost and not on the nesting box. But now what you'll do there is when you clean it out, and if you don't have the roosting problem, you won't have to clean it out very often, but you just want to make sure you have a good layer of dry, clean straw in there. I don't like shavings in my nesting box because they're going to scratch them out usually, and you'll end up with just the bare floor, and you can have broken eggs, and then you've got to clean the broken eggs out. And broken eggs can also cause your chickens to start pecking eggs. So we want to make sure that the nesting box is fluffy with good, clean, dry straw or hay. Now, when you do change it, or when you first start doing it, or just periodically, And just as the floor, you want to take some diatomaceous earth and you want to sprinkle it underneath there and just put a layer in there, and that's going to help keep your nesting boxes clean. So tip number 2 is turnout, and this is probably my favorite. If you can allow your chickens to be safely outside of their run for a little bit each day or whenever possible, that will do so much for their health, both mentally and physically. Chickens have natural behaviors, and they want to get out and they want to scratch around under trees and all over, and they want to scratch and look for bugs and worms and things like that, and it is so good for them mentally and physically. But it's very important that they're safe, that they're in an area where they can't be attacked by a predator. Now, predator is most likely in today's setting is going to be a domesticated dog. That is by far the highest percentage of loss to farmers and people with backyard flocks is going to be stray dogs, your dog, or whatever the situation is, it's going to be domesticated dogs. So you want to be sure that they're in an area where they're safe. So you may be asking, how do I put my chickens up in the evening? How do I catch them? Well, if you will allow your chickens to live in their coop, in their home, when you first get them, if you will leave them in there for a week or two before you allow them turnout, as long as the coop door is left open, when evening comes, they will put themselves up. So that is not a problem. So as long as they're safe, and they can get out and roam around and free range, and it is just phenomenal for their health. They'll get sunshine, they'll get exercise, they'll be able to be chickens as God made them. A dust bath is very important for your chickens. That's how they stay clean, and they will choose where is best for them to do a dust bath. You can sprinkle a little bit of hardwood ashes in that area where they do their dust bath, and also a little diatomaceous earth. Both of those are great additions to their dust bath and helps to keep them healthy. So that brings us to number 4, and feed. Today, feed prices are through the roof. So I want to share with you a few things that you can do that's going to help to lower your feed cost and make your chickens healthier in the long run. Now, if you don't have a way to turn them out where they have access to a lot of variety of bugs and everything, one thing that you can do is you can feed them some over-the-counter mealworms, some dried mealworms. A little treat of that is going to be a great thing as far as giving them some of the bug type things that their body needs. Also, kitchen scraps, greens, any kind of green vegetables, apple cores. You can even give them meat. Now, I don't give mine poultry meat, but I do give them, if they like beef or pork. And you can even share with them low sodium or no sodium sardines. That's great, and it gives their feathers a beautiful gloss. Those are treats. But what about every day? So we're going to talk about 2 things. Number 1 is scratch feed. If you can afford organic, if you can afford non-GMO, which non-GMO usually is not very much more expensive than your regular feeds, but organic can get very pricey. But feed what you can afford with no guilt. If you can't afford the expensive organic feeds, we're still going to do better by doing it ourselves and buying local. Now, I will stress this, buy local. Not your local big box store, but your local feed supplier like your co-op. That's what I'm going to really stress here, because you're going to get a better quality feed, in my opinion. It's usually grown more local. That may be regional, but it's usually grown a little closer. They source it a little bit closer, and it's usually just a better quality feed, I find. Scratch feed is another thing that it's more of a treat. You're going to throw it out, especially if they're not able to get free range turnout. You could throw it in their pen, and it gives them that opportunity to eat the grains, and also they're going to do the scratching, the natural behavior that's going to help keep them happy. When it comes to your pellets, if you're raising layers and you want laying hens, you want to be sure you're feeding at least 22% protein. 22% protein is going to stimulate your chickens, your hens, to lay. If they're starving for protein, then they're going to begin to cut back on laying. So you want to make sure it's a 22% protein. Here's my number one tip about feed: fermented chicken feed. If you can ferment their feed, you are going to save, I have read, 25 to 40% on your feed bill. Now, I don't ferment exclusively. What I do is I have free choice in my feeder of their dry grains, but I supplement with fermented feeds, and it makes a huge difference. Now, here's the thing about the fermented feeds. Not only does it stretch your feed, it unlocks nutrition that otherwise is not available to your chickens in the dry feed. It also builds their immunity in an amazing way, fills their digestive system with beneficial probiotics, and those probiotics also help build a barrier against E. coli and salmonella. So you can see that fermented grains are just amazing for your chickens. If you don't have time to do it on a continuous basis, meaning exclusively feeding that, offer it to them as often as you can, whether it's 2 or 3 days a week, once a week, every day. As much as you can do, it's going to be better for your chicken's health. So probably out of all of these, they're all great, and I have a couple of other favorites, but fermenting your feed is my top number one tip to having a healthy flock. Here's my tip number 5. Elderberry is antiviral, antibacterial, and antifungal. So you can see the benefits of it, and that is why it's so good for us. So if you source it for your family, if you can spare a little bit to add a couple of tablespoons into your chicken's water, just like you do the apple cider vinegar, or if you can add some fresh or some dried to their feed, it's just going to be a bonus benefit to help keep them strong. And I know this personally because I started using elderberry a couple of years ago when I had about a fowl pox breakout in my coop, in my pen, with some of my chickens. Elderberry works for us. I'm going to try it on my chickens. And I had amazing results. The chickens come out of the fowl pox within a couple of days and were stronger and healthier on the other side. So I highly recommend elderberry. Well, there's my 5 top tips to help you have a healthier, happier flock. And a happy chicken is a healthy chicken. So if you have tips that you would like to share with us on what you do to keep your flock happy and healthy, please drop a comment below. And if you found value in this video, don't forget to hit that like button. And I invite you, if you're not a subscriber, to subscribe and come along with us on this journey. And before I leave you, I want to share these wonderful words with you. Don't ever forget that your Heavenly Father loves you. And we'll see you on the next video. God bless.